So today we have a package from Gulf Coast Ecosystems down in Florida, and it is from Macro Algae. So I decided to pick up 2 frags of Dragon's Breath, and then I just decided to pick up a thing of Sargassum seaweed as well. And you can't exactly see them very well since they're double packaged, but this is from Gulf Coast Ecosystems, like I just mentioned, and I thought while we're unbagging this, I would kind of go over who they are and what they do, since they're not exactly the most well-known company. But if you've seen people like Inappropriate Reefer and Bahama Llama Coral on YouTube, as well as people on Instagram like Tiger Boy, Inland Reef, and Miss Mermaid, you probably already know this company. They're a company down in Florida, and I guess the main reason people don't really, shop with them, and Moki from the Inappropriate Reefer brought this up, is that their site isn't like the most up to date, but they are a very awesome company, and they're very generous with their portions. Like, this much sargassum seaweed was $8, and I will show it more once it's out of the bag, but it's kind of like kelp, I would say. I did notice some bubbles like right there, which is pretty awesome. I didn't exactly know what kind of sargassum I was getting since they collect a variety, but I think this one is the one that floats, so that's pretty awesome. And then we have the Dragon's Breath, which is what I've had before, but it didn't do so well last time. But now with how much I'm actually feeding this tank, I think it'll do very well. So let's just get to the packaging. So here's the sargassum. I think you can see it better now. Oh, there's a lot of bubbles. Okay, that makes me think that it for sure is the floating kind, but they are not just macro algae, like I guess specialists. They also do photosynthetic and sometimes non-photosynthetic orgonians and sponges as well, but I didn't pick up any since we already have a couple non-photosynthetic orgonians in here, and I think that is the route I would like to take. I do want to get one more for here, since this rock is kind of bland. I'm thinking either a purple sea fan or a blueberry gorgonian, so that's going to be something to decide. But right now what you want to do is just basically acclimate the algae, since they don't really need to adjust the salinity. If your salinity is like crazy out of range, then you probably should, but you really just want to temp acclimate them. And here's a Dragon's Breath. It's actually different looking than the TSA one, but I guess this one is also aquacultured, but I guess the TSA ones, they just grow differently. But yeah, I'll just put this in the tank for now, and we'll come back later to when they're fully acclimated. And after I place them in the tank, I'm just going to go over some updates that have been going on with this tank, since a lot of stuff looks different, especially the electric flame scallop. As you can see, it moved, which I'll go over that in a bit. So I'll be back shortly once this has, I guess, temp acclimated, and I'll find some spots in the tank for it. So one thing you really want to do when getting macroalgae is you want to kind of, I guess, swish it around in the water from the bag in a bucket, since macroalgae can come with all kinds of hitchhikers. As you can see, I think you can see this like orange little critter on here. I'm not sure if it's animal or just, I don't know what it is, but you can see some other stuff like those white things. Oh, you can see a better look at the orange thing. Is that a nudibranch? I don't know. It could be, but you really want to switch it off, since anything could be introduced into your tank, and especially if it's something damaging, like let's say a huge bristleworm somehow, or a bristleworm that can just grow inside your tank and just wreak havoc, then that's pretty bad. So this is just a friendly tip, and I'll try and see what this thing is because it looks really interesting. So before I get into this part of the video, I just want to say that the audio sounds weird right here because I'm using a different microphone, since the one with the clear audio kind of broke, but I'm working on getting a new microphone soon. And the timeline for this might be a little weird, like I might say some stuff that wasn't in the last part, since I tried to record this part 2 different times. The first one didn't work out because it went for a super long time, and the second part I just lost everything for it, like the video and the audio didn't come through quite well. So sorry if this part sounds kind of weird and doesn't make too much sense, but that's just kind of a heads up. So it's been a couple days since adding the algae, and I'm going to go over some updates about the algae and kind of just updates from everything that we unboxed. So first up, we have the Sargassum, and you can see that it's now in three different spots. As I initially put the whole bunch in this corner, it was irritating the pink polyp white sea fan as some of it was kind of rubbing against the coral. So I ended up snipping it in kind of almost half. So now we have three different places where the sargassum is. So hopefully we should have three different spots and three different opportunities for the sargassum to grow, since sargassum isn't necessarily the easiest macroalgae to grow, as I found out. Tiger Boy actually messaged me on Instagram after seeing my story, and they need high light and high flow, which both of those I feel like are met in this tank, since the wave maker is just that powerful for a 5 gallon, and the kind of fluval light that comes with the tank itself is already pretty powerful for the size of the tank. So I think that the sargassum should hopefully thrive in here. So next up we have the Dragon's Breath macroalgae, and I ended up putting one frag of it on the rock where I was going to put a Gorgonian. I still am planning on putting another Gorgonian or a sea fan of some sort on there, but for now, the Dragon's Breath will stay on there. And some of it actually fell off and fell into a crevice. You can see right here on the same rock. So hopefully that roots and kind of starts its own clump. And I placed another one on the rock with the yellow and the red finger Gorgonians. And so far, it's been doing pretty well. Of course, it's only been a couple of days, so I can't say that with full confidence, but I am dosing Neo Nitro, which is just straight nitrates, because I don't have anything in the tank itself producing nitrates, such as a fish of some sort. And it's not bleaching out and losing its color, which, if you didn't know, with macalgae, the main way that you can tell that it's unhealthy and not getting enough nutrients is when they start to lose their color and they actually turn this kind of. So it depends on which ones you have, such as my old piece of Dragon's Breath actually turned a green color, but I know some of them can turn kind of like a bleachy white color, kind of like with coral, but that means that they're not getting enough nutrients to actually support itself, and soon it'll pretty much end up dying. And the main differences that I said, that I mentioned earlier in the video, of the TSA Dragon's Breath or the Top Shelf Aquatics Dragon's Breath macroalgae not looking the same as this one, is the Top Shelf Aquatics macroalgae has shorter leaves and more like pointy tips, I would say. And from looking at old footage, it looks like that it might have been more vibrant under blue light, and it was kind of a more solid red, as this one has some white speckles in it, bigger leaves, kind of like a kind of flame shape, and as well as being kind of a mixture of dark red and light red. So hopefully in the future I can get some more of the Top Shelf Aquatics Dragon's Breath. But this one is just as cool nonetheless. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the video earlier, but the unique thing about Dragon's Breath macroalgae, both the Top Shelf Aquatics one and this one, is that under blue light they fluoresce. The tips of the algae actually get this really nice orange color, and even without blue light, if they're high enough towards the light and they're happy enough in the tank, you can actually see the orange color just in white light. So my hope is that the Dragon's Breath ends up rooting into the rocks and kind of growing over the rocks, giving enough space up to the Gorgonians, of course. This kind of macro isn't the fastest growing, which is awesome. And if it does end up irritating the Gorgonians, then I will have to clip it back, which is good since this one is really popular and it sells well, so I can make a little bit of side money at the same time. So for starting off with the updates of the stuff that we unboxed in the last episode in the series, which I know that video came out about a week ago or almost 2 weeks ago, but in general, I unboxed and put everything in about 3 weeks ago, and we're now heading into the fourth week. And unfortunately, there is some bad and good news, and I thought I would start off with the bad news first. So unfortunately, I think the Peterson's cleaner shrimp is a no-go anymore. What I think might have happened is that the first night, for whatever reason, it didn't make it, and the Nasari snails end up cleaning up the body. And this was kind of my theory in the like video way where I unboxed them, and I think that has turned out to be true because it's been almost a month and no sign of shrimp. Of course, it could be just like out of my view and still hiding in the rock somewhere, since this happened with another fish a while ago where it was gone for 8 months, but then all of a sudden, when my dad was doing a water change, it ended up popping back out and it was completely fine. So hopefully he's still around there somewhere, but right now I am pretty sure my first theory, which is that it passed away overnight and the Nasari snails ended up cleaning a body, is true. The other sad piece of news we have today is about the dwarf feather dusters, and unfortunately, right off the bat, I think two ended up losing their crowns, which is that kind of feathery part you see, and this usually happens during like when they're moving locations, which is completely fine as long as they're healthy. They should have grown them back within about a couple weeks, but unfortunately, I think I accidentally killed one of the yellow ones. I brought this up in the last video, but I didn't realize that their tubes were so soft and leathery that the first one that I tried to put in the tank, I think I accidentally crushed the worm that was inside it, and this got proven even further when this green stuff came out of it, which it wasn't like stringy, it was just a little cloud of green. And I later seeing that night that one of the worms was moving locations and that it was kind of a greenish yellow color, I unfortunately think that I ended up crushing one, and they didn't do so well in my tank, so I just gave them away. I think the flow is too high for them. They aren't animals that appreciate a ton of flow. Fortunately, the feather dusters are a no-go in this tank from now on. But now we're going on to the good news, and the good news is that the electric flame scalp is thriving in the tank actually, and hopefully when I hit that 6 to 8 month mark, which is typically the kind of time when they end up dying in aquariums, uh, I will make a care guide, and I have a really good theory why they don't do that well in home aquariums, just because I believe they have been given the improper diet and they aren't spot fed. Spot feeding them is a really important kind of, I guess, contribution to their health and for them to survive. So I have been spot feeding them Phyto Feast, and it actually moved from the rock that I placed it under in the last episode, and it's actually moved to the corner by the intake, but that's completely fine since I don't use that pump anymore, and even if it was active, the pump was so weak that it wouldn't even be able to pull the tentacles of the flame scallop in. But it has moved there for more space just because it has grown a little bit, and it couldn't really expand all the way under that rock. So glad to see it's doing fine. And the other good news is the pink pop white sea fan. It is also doing really well. Possible signs of new growth. I'm not exactly sure how I guess they grow, but from what I can see, there's some pointy parts on the ends of some of the kind of stalks, I guess you would call them, which I believe are signs of new growth because I think what happens is the skeleton forms first, and then after that, the kind of coral itself starts to form, and that's really awesome. And I'm also feeding that Phyto Feast, and if it does end up getting quite big, since I know sea fins do get to a reasonable size, then I can just frag it off. I did frag some of it off in the last episode, but I didn't ever show that just because it was kind of on to a base when it came. So I already know how to frag them. So the two things that I thought wouldn't really make it are the ones that are actually thriving, which is kind of funny. But unfortunately, I don't think I'll be getting any more invertebrates or even the first fish just so soon, since I really want the macro algae to start to grow out first to provide more hiding spots for the different stuff I want to add, since I think another reason that the shrimp might have passed is because there weren't a lot of hiding spots for it. Yeah, there was rock work, but a lot of it doesn't really have an entrance into the rock itself. So having the algae grow out is going to make a really awesome hiding places for the fish and the invertebrates that I really want for this tank. And with that, we conclude the video. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it around if you did enjoy it. Also, leaving a comment telling me what you think. And if you are looking for a place to get macroalgae, I highly recommend Gulf Coast Ecosystems. And if you aren't in the market for macroalgae, they also have a wide variety of photosynthetic organians, and they're now doing sponges as well. And they also have a different snails, I guess, as well. But I'll leave the link to them in the description in the comments below. And they're a really good company, and they're deserving of all the fame and appreciation that they've gotten so far. So with that, my name is Northwest Fishkeeping. Seeing everyone later this week. Signing out.